Thank you so much, and I think good afternoon. First of all, as many of you know, last night we lost Adi Barkan. Adi was a very dear friend of mine, and one of our generation's great champions for this bold new consensus for public goods, for building a flourishing society grounded in economic justice and in full inclusion. Adi first organized Fed Up, an organizing effort to involve working people in pushing the Federal Reserve, which, after all, is a public option for fiscal stability, to attend not just to price controls, but to supporting a flourishing economy that works for working people. We worked together to build local progress, a national network of local elected officials fighting at the local level for exactly the kinds of policies that we're talking about today. And after his diagnosis with ALS 70 years ago, he became really our greatest champion for Medicare for All, for a vision of healthcare and care work in general that aligns profoundly with the vision being articulated today, where not only everyone has access to the care they need to stay healthy, to stay alive, to take care of their kids, to take care of their seniors, regardless of their income, but also where those jobs aren't just good jobs, but where we see the profound dignity of care work as some of the highest and most important contributions that people make. It's a model not just of distributive justice, but of contributive justice, of how what we give and contribute is part of what makes us contributing, partnering, equal human beings and citizens of our communities. I actually think what Anand was saying about coal miners really gets at that. It was something that Adi really got profoundly in thinking about his care workers. He really was the most courageous person and the most relentless organizer that I have met in my entire life. And in that spirit, he wouldn't really want a moment of silence. What he would want is that we do this work together in his memory. In particular, his organization, Be a Hero, is busy at this moment fighting against the form of healthcare privatization known as Medicare Advantage. Earlier this year, we reached the point where more than half of Medicare enrollees are in private HMOs and not in traditional Medicare. We won't get to Medicare for all through Medicare for fewer and fewer and fewer. So I just want to ask you to join me in fighting like hell in Adi's memory, and I'm grateful for you to give me a minute to talk about him today. Thank you. Rest in power, Adi. Okay, it's great to be in Cooper Union, in such a historic place in New York City. Welcome to those of you who are from elsewhere. I think it's important to recognize New York City is built on robust public goods. New York City's growth was made possible by its public water infrastructure. It's insufficiently explored in the musical Hamilton, but Aaron Burr wasn't just a villain for killing Hamilton. He tried to make his fortune by building a private water company that would provide New York City's water privately, and to save money, the company he created used an old well and built an undersized reservoir. So instead of bringing in fresh, clean water, it filled its tanks with aqua obscura, with water of unknown and questionable origin. Private water provision, you can't easily verify water quality. Customers don't necessarily know if they have clean water. They aren't often ready to pay a premium for it. Luckily, New York City eventually did not do that, built the Croton Aqueduct, which has been providing clean public water since 1842, dramatically reducing the mortality rate and providing the platform for New York's growth and shared thriving. In the second half of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th, in partnership with that generation's great philanthropists, thank you to the foundations in the room today, and especially Chris Hughes, they built our remarkable network of public libraries, starting with the big ones, but with this amazing neighborhood branches that still today are making it possible for families to access the internet and knowledge and jobs and flourishing. And it was here in New York City that John Dewey wrote about the essential role of public education in our democracy, and where we built out what's not only the greatest network of K-12 schools, but the City University of New York, a public option for higher education, and one of the most significant engines of upward social mobility anywhere in the United States. It's here in New York City where we've expanded that to cover pre-K and 3K. My friend Josh Wallach, I think, is in the room, who led that expansion. Thank you, Josh, for that public option for early childhood education. Those are all public options. New York City has bookstores, so if you got money, you could go buy books. We've got private schools and private pre-K and private preschools, and you can buy water at the bodega. But those robust public options make essential goods accessible to low-income and working-class people. They provide not just good jobs, but thriving careers of contribution. Librarians, teachers, building and construction service workers on public projects, public health professionals. Those are part of that model of contributive justice that Adi was starting to help us sketch out. And of course, all of them provide a platform not just for the people who receive services, but for a city that thrives because a diverse set of people are able to contribute and build something together. That's what our history is profoundly built on, and that's what we've got to do for our future as part of this bold new consensus and a vision of economic flourishing going forward. So today, as we stand at the precipice of critical new transitions, I want to talk to you about a thing we're going to be pioneering for the future as we face the climate transition, and it's called Public Solar New York City, or Public Solar NYC. And the goal, all right, let's hear it for that. It's good. It's a public option for rooftop solar. So the principles are pretty straightforward. It'll be a public option for rooftop solar that will make renewable energy accessible for low and moderate income New Yorkers and all New Yorkers, that will dramatically speed up the energy transition that's necessary to preserve the planet, and it'll create tens of thousands of good green jobs. Now, for the speed at which we need to reduce emissions and fossil fuel extraction, we need all hands on deck. So there is a critical role to play for private companies and utilities to produce clean power, but we should be mindful of the risks that come from models that put profit first. It risks excluding people who can't afford it, working class and low moderate income people. Without good job standards, it risks those jobs being erased to the bottom instead of contributing careers. And it'll only move at the speed at which money can be made, and the climate transition has to go faster than that. I realized a lot of this when I installed solar on my house. I had to come up with a few $1,000s out of my pocket. I had to act like a developer myself, and I didn't have any idea about what the standards were of the workers at the company that I hired. We will never scale rooftop solar at the speed that we need for the energy transition, and we won't do it in a way that's consistent with the principles we're talking about today for a flourishing economy if we just do it with private options. So I'm excited about the public power movement that's growing across the country, including a great public power law that passed the New York State Legislature earlier this year. Props if there's activists in the room who made that happen. Here's how we're going to pilot it in New York City. So we're applying right now for a grant from the Solar for All program of the Inflation Reduction Act. Thank you, President Biden, and all the activists who made that happen. We'll combine that money with the IRA's direct pay money, and hopefully, eventually, we will use municipal finance, the same dollars that built that water infrastructure, those public libraries, and those public schools. This is municipal infrastructure. That is sort of the key insight that Public Solar New York City has. And then we will go to building owners, beginning with low and moderate income homeowners and affordable housing, rental affordable housing, who are currently most excluded from access to solar. And we'll say to them, look, we will, the city will, Public Solar NYC will finance, permit, install, own, asset manage the rooftop solar at no cost to the owners or tenants of those buildings, and they'll share in the energy benefits as the sun starts to provide the power for their buildings and for the city. Building on that, we'll be able to leverage our procurement power to embed strong labor protections, good job and labor peace standards, and first source hiring to make sure that frontline communities in New York City, public housing residents, residents of environmental justice communities, will be able to benefit from that transition, and that they will be in good union jobs that provide a real career in contributing to the transition that we all need. The expected gains include energy cost savings for both the city and its residents, equitable green job opportunities with high labor standards, and the possibility to turbocharge the energy transition that we must make go faster. So I'm pleased to say we have the application in. If you know people on the review board, please tell them you heard great things about Public Solar New York City. I don't know if they can hear me in the green room. Louise Young, our Chief Climate Officer, is here and is happy to talk with people about that application and how we're doing it. We really view it as a pilot that we want to grow and expand in New York City, but we also want to share and be part of a flourishing community of folks moving public power options all over the country. And even more than that, and it's why I'm so happy to be here today, we want to be part of this bold new consensus of this big set of people dreaming for public options for a flourishing economy in all different sectors of the economy, from care work to climate to financial services and on and on and on. There isn't just one path to developing public options, and local government sure can't do it alone. We need support for implementation, for telling the story, for doing the research that shows that it works. That's why I'm so grateful to the Economic Security Project for helping elevate and connect those of us doing this public options work. We will be so much better able to do it together. And I just want to conclude with one final story. A couple of years ago, there was a blackout in Santa Barbara where Adi's family lives. And he relied for the last 2 or 3 years of his life on a ventilator to breathe. So he would have died in that blackout when the power went out. But he had rooftop solar with a battery that kept powering the ventilator when the lights went out, and bought him a few more years. He has a 3-year-old Willow and a 6-year-old Carl, and the couple of years that rooftop solar and that battery bought him are the difference between them remembering him and then not remembering him. So, don't pshaw on rooftop solar is all I'm saying. Now, I have to be honest, it was a Tesla battery. They don't have public solar yet in Santa Barbara. Like the 24/7 care that Adi had, the resources that made his extraordinary life possible for the past few years are not accessible to everyone. It took resources for that 24/7 care. It took resources for that solar and that battery. And that's why he was fighting so hard to make sure that they will be accessible to everyone. Public options are part of that bold new consensus that we need to build a genuinely shared future where everybody's got access to the goods that they need to flourish and thrive. And I am so grateful in Adi's memory and for Carl and Willow and all of our kids to be working alongside you to fight like hell to build it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Economic Security Project. Thank you, everybody who's here today to build that bold new consensus.